My name is Marcelo, and you are watching Regent Park TV. Today, we bring you highlights from the Regent Park SDP Planning Committee's latest meeting, held on September 19, 2024. Key discussions included concerns about unanswered community mediation issues, a heated debate over the use of AI note-taker bots, and the upcoming co-chair elections. The meeting saw a strong opinion about the use of AI note-taking, with some members raising privacy concerns, while others emphasized its benefits for accessibility. No final decision was reached, but training and policy development were recommended. The committee also reviewed co-chair elections procedures, which are scheduled for October. The committee will review archives to confirm which positions are up for re-election. The group also moved forward with plans to request funds for business cards and debated the revival of the funding committee ahead of the social development plan refresh. Now, let's go to the meeting video.
To the next point and wait for Olanike to join us at 2:45, and then we'll bring that item up, if that's okay with everyone. Okay? So Adonis, you have the floor, my friend. You're leading the conversation related to AI bots in planning committee meetings. So go ahead.
Okay, so
welcome Halima. Sorry, Adonis. Welcome Halima. Do you want to quickly introduce yourself and quickly just speak to what are you looking forward to, whether it's an event or a program this fall?
My name is Halima. I work at Pathways to Education Regent Park. And then in terms of what I'm looking forward to, everything. Just connecting with the community. I'm looking forward to everything.
Amazing. Thank you, Halima. So Halima, we just approved the agenda, and now we're moving to the first item, which is AI bots. So Adonis, take it away.
Okay, just to give everyone context, we had come up with a policy regarding recording meetings. Basically, we record all our planning committee meetings, and whatever working groups want to record their meetings, they're welcome to record them as well. This recording goes to the Focus Media Arts Center and to the SDP staff member, which would be Brandy in this case. I'm assuming as well with Supervisor Joel, but that's a connection between both of them. So those are the people who have the recordings. Focus goes through the recordings and basically, for the most part, just gives a little bit of context and takes out pieces where which are considered in terms of, I know these meetings sometimes get really passionate, and people sometimes say things that there's pieces in there that the public won't understand. So we basically clean up those pieces, and we present the main discussions that were happening at the meetings, the agenda, and I'm pretty much, generally we record the whole thing, except when there's insults to each other. And those have been reduced quite significantly since we started recording. So I want to say for the most part, we generally record everything. And then we put it on public. But basically, we do go through all the meetings before we put them through, and we highlight anything that is could be seen as problematic in terms of insults, in terms of essentially violating the shaping culture policy, which we have. So that said, we then released it on Regent Park TV for all the members to see the recordings. So if people have missed it, they want to see what goes on, that's fine. So that's our policy. So we don't release even on requests. People can make a special request in terms of why they want to see the full recordings, but generally we don't release the full recordings. So that's the context for that. That was a decision that we had made. What we haven't discussed is what's has been appearing at some of our meetings, which is the AI bot, the OTTER bot, which essentially provides a written, transcripted minutes of the meeting. Basically, it transcribes what has said and who says it and everything else in the meeting. That I understand, and this is where Gail could give me more information because I'm not entirely fully knowledgeable about the AI but it essentially goes to all the members who were invited to the meeting. Whether, and Gail, correct me if I'm wrong, whether you were absent or not. And I don't know if settings could be arranged where it only goes to a few people, but it will go to everyone who was invited to the meeting. It goes to our SDP staff members. It goes to people who are not here at the meeting as well, could access that. So it's handy in one sense. I think it helps our staff to do the minutes and look back at that. And it helps, I guess, when people are not here, they could see what had happened in the meeting. So that's the context to it. And we're having this discussion today because there hasn't been a decision about whether we use it or not. And some people have concerns about it. And I'm not in favor or not. I mean, I'm not putting this forward because I agree with using it or not. I'm just describing the context. And Gail, if you have anything that I have said that needs to be cleared up, maybe you could do so if Walied at the graciousness of Walied, you could do so at this point in time if I missed anything.
Are we going into this discussion?
Not yet.
Yeah.
We're just getting information right now from Gail to see if anything was missed from that discussion. And then we'll go into the discussion. So Gail,
thank
go
you.
ahead if I made any
Now.
inaccuracies.
Okay, we'll let Gail speak
You
next.
called it AI and it's not. I think you have to be a little bit more definitive and say it's a note-taking AI tool. That is the terminology being used. Like AI is such a broad thing that we're not anywhere close to that. We're simply using an AI note-taking tool. And it's not even AI, but anyways, that's another whole nother conversation. But yeah, it's a AI note-taking tool and not just saying AI, because it's a much bigger conversation.
Thanks for that clarity, Gail. We're going to move on to Miguel.
So we're doing this before the discussion on the funding?
No, Michael. Yes, this is the first item. That's what we're speaking to. We're speaking about AI. We're having a discussion like we agreed to at the agenda planning meeting.
I thought the other item was first, but okay, that's fine with me.
Yeah, so I went through the agenda items that we approved collectively. So that's the first item. All right. I'm going to add, if you would like to speak to this, I can add you to this list. Is that okay? Will you like to speak to this, Michael?
Yes, of course I do.
Okay, so I'll put you after Gail. So we have Miguel, Sarah Jane, Gail, and then yourself, Michael. Miguel, you can go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Adonis, for the proposal, policy, and the clarification on this particular improvement for note-taking. All this does is allow people with, perhaps with disabilities, I would like to point it out, that they use it for the purpose of help them with the disabilities, learning disabilities. My daughter is one of them. My son is one of them. They use artificial intelligence for note-taking because it's the disability they have. So the only group, as we know, that is not aligned with the vision and community statement is the Regent Park Safety Network. It is the most difficult committee to request the recording of the meetings. Needless to say, the artificial intelligence also will be another conflict, and they will be saying no to it. But I did propose them to add it to the next agenda so that we won't be able to become toxic victims of people who have ignorance about the use of this note taker. I was a victim of bullying on on Monday night, and I don't want to see a repeat of that. And I'm glad to know that most of the personal attacks have reduced. Is because maybe because we're recording ourselves and we're starting to behave each other. But that's not the case of the Regent Park Safety Network. On Monday night, I was the victim of bullying, and it makes me afraid. I don't feel safe to go to the Regent Park Safety Network unless two things can happen. We start to record certain parts, not definitely everything that is confidential, but certain parts we need to record it for the purpose of educating our community. And second, allow the artificial intelligence note taker exclusively to address people with disabilities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Miguel. We're going to move on to Sarah Jane and then Gail.
Hi, okay. I have several questions. The note-taking AI, and I'm glad Gail made the definition because I went to an hour-long meeting about what AI is, and it is immense. And Deanie was probably right, she's not here, but it's, it's the same thing as when we converted to digital. It's immense. The note-taking robot, whoever owns that robot, and Gail, you said that the first 25 minutes are free, but every time I've tried to get on after the first time, I've had to pay, and I don't want to pay. The note-taking, whoever owns the robot will own those minutes. So I don't think Regent Park, any of the Regent Park committees will be able to edit those minutes or control who they're sent to, because the AI robot is owned by, and I understand it's paid for, so they'll own that. So, and the second thing is, we haven't decided whether the AI or the robot owner has to also be in the meeting, because otherwise we might have, I don't know how many people are here today, 11. We don't usually, everybody might want to own a robot. And I have visions of Walied's eloquence being voiced to an empty room full of robots who won't be able to answer him and won't be able to listen to him. I mean, it's a ridiculous proposal, but I mean, it's unmanageable, I think. And we haven't decided whether the AI robot owner has to be there to be able to say anything. And, without the picking apart of the nasty things that Focus kindly does for us, I'm scared to be in a meeting with an AI recorder. And the last thing is, I have used the minutes many times because I've had something to be noted and they haven't been noted. And I've had to go in and see that they weren't noted and make sure that they were. So I don't want any AI robot in any of our meetings. That's just my vote.
Okay. Sorry, Jane, that's a wonderful perspective. We'll go on to Gail, and I have some comments to share after that. And if anyone would like to go second round, please, please do. Gail, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, you can let Michael go. I'm just going to share a document, so you can let Michael go in the meantime.
Okay. Michael, go ahead.
Okay. So as things stand now, I think this does largely fall under the issue of recording. And therefore, just on that basis alone, it should probably not be happening. But I'm not feeling that strongly for or against it. I do have a problem with the way the recordings are being handled, namely that one person is deciding what parts should be seen. I'm sort of willing to accept that if the originals are destroyed afterwards. Because what I really don't like is one person getting to decide who gets to see which version, which means that person already has that right. So I don't like having two classes of people here. So I would accept this if the originals were destroyed after they were edited, because then there's only one version and there's no inequality between us and et cetera. So that's a concern I have about recording. As far as the AI is concerned, I have lots of concerns about AI. As far as like an exact terminology for what we're talking about here, I could say it's an AI note taker, but I would not say it's a tool. It's an AI note taker. It just leave it at that. And I'm willing to accept if people want to or not want to allow it. I would point out that it goes against our existing recording agreement because we never agreed to have like any additional recordings made. So we only wanted one recording that would be edited. So it actually is contrary to our existing, but we could change that, I suppose. But I do want people to understand that AI isn't just a simple recording device, that it's extremely harmful, and you should actually believe the worst things you've heard about it, because chances are most to be expected you haven't even heard the worst. So anything you've heard is believe the worst of it, not that it's useful and helpful. Of course, it will be useful and helpful in minor situations, and then it will take over and destroy everything. So I think people should be aware of that while they're making individual decisions about the use. So I don't necessarily object if people decide they want to allow it, as long as they're doing it with the understanding that it is not controllable and it is not a tool.
Okay.
And that we don't have to like use and accept all technology. Even if we accept it this time, we have the ability to not accept it at another occasion. And eventually we will find that we want to not accept it more often than we do accept it. So as long as we're accepting it under the enlightened understanding like that, then maybe it's not so harmful. But don't start believing that we need to accept all technology and it's all going to be helpful and everything's just fine.
Okay, thank you so much, Michael. I'll go next, and then I'll ask Gail. Gail wants to go next, and then Sarah Jane, I have you on the list. So I've thought about this questions related to the use of AI note takers for a long time, and I think there was a really important point that was raised by some of us. I don't know if Miguel raised it or who else raised it. I think Adonis also raised it in the beginning of the meeting, that we've seen a change in attitude and conduct at meetings when they're recorded. That people are much more conscious of their behavior when it's been recorded, and I think that's a good thing. I also want to remind everyone that these are public meetings. These are not closed meetings. These are open meetings that any resident of Regent Park can join. And if you can't say something publicly that you are proud of, you shouldn't, say it at all, right? So, it's important to remember that. And we have moved away from meetings being, in the past, people will say that it was toxic, there was bullying, to much more welcoming and safe meetings. That's been my experience so far, right? And if there's been internal conflicts between individuals, there's always been that a collective push for mediation outside meetings so that there are no issues at the meetings themselves. And I'm seeing that. I feel very comfortable going to SDP meetings and working groups. I don't feel attacked. I feel very welcome. I feel like my opinion matters, even if people don't agree with me. And I think that's what it should be. So now I'm going to quickly speak about AI note takers. I personally, I'm of the opinion that we should allow AI note takers into our meetings. And I'll tell you why. I get busy. I'm in between meetings sometimes. I want to meaningfully participate, but I can't because, I don't know what the context is. So it helps me with context setting. It helps me appreciate what was said so that I don't waste people's time by asking the same questions that were asked prior, right? So it's also a really good tool for me to reflect on the discourse that happened in the meeting after the meeting, right? Like I don't take notes. I'm not walking around with a pen and paper gibbering down notes. AI note takers actually help me become more organized. And the one fear that I want to quickly reflect on, which Sarah Jane brought up, which I thought was really wise and smart, by the way, which is you don't want to be in a room with just AI robots and no one else shows up. And I agree with you. I think people need to be in meetings to meaningfully participate, exchange ideas, challenge each other in a respectful way, support each other's positions so that we could build consensus. Like that's the amazing things about meetings. We get to talk to each other. And I wish we could do this more in person rather than virtually. But if we are doing it virtually and we have the tools that help us gain information, I don't think it's a bad thing. So I'll keep it to those points. And I just want to encourage people to just share their thoughts so that we could look at what are the gaps so that we could build consensus on a process that works for everybody. So I'm going to ask Gail, I know there was something you wanted to share earlier. Do you want to do that right now, or can I go on to Sarah Jane next?
Please, yeah. So, Brandy, sorry, I sent you a document. And it provides the advantages and disadvantages, right? So this is not, some of the things that we can do would be to look at what other organizations have done, right? There are nonprofits in Canada that are using, OTTER and other note-taking tools. So when we think of advantages, and sorry, I can't share, so it'd have to be from Brandy's end. But when we look at, if we're trying to make a decision on this, we look at the advantages. You have things like, I can get some transcription done, right, quickly, and for the most part, accurate. But there are also the disadvantage that it could be inaccurate. It could be inaccurate in terms of capturing the context. And sometimes there's some subtle meanings that obviously an AI is not going to capture. This is another way to automate note-taking. So I think of Brandy, and this is a way that she can go back and compare her notes with the notes from the AI, or same thing as what you would do with a recording. But then there's also the advantage of security, right? Privacy issues, right? And that's if we have like really sensitive data. I don't know if that applies, but may. We can quickly find information that you need. But again, to the points that were made here, they can become over-reliant. So, everybody can't make the meeting, so it's only the note takers in the meeting, right? And that certainly is a disadvantage, right? And another disadvantage is the cost. Another disadvantage could certainly be the nonverbal cues that an AI cannot pick up, the cultural nuances that an AI cannot pick up. Right, so there are going to be advantages and disadvantages. The ones that worked for me, and I think that worked for this group, would be getting another form of transcription, getting notes quickly, being able to quickly search through, those notes. Sometimes people say things and another person agrees. You can quickly use the note taker to find that information. Everybody gets to participate because whether I'm absent-minded or I need, there's another type of inability, the note-taking can help, right? So, when I look at those notes, I can quickly kind of get a sense of what the meeting was about. What I always have to be careful of when I look at it is it tells you about the sense of the room. And that is where personally, it's my responsibility to say, let me not use that, because that is an AI that cannot really interpret human interactions with any sense of accuracy. So, let me talk to the people that were there and get a sense for, right? And I think that's all our responsibility. Anyways, that's where I'll leave it. But you have the advantages and disadvantages, and then we all can read and comprehend, and we can all help to make these decisions.
Thank you, Gail. We're now going to move on to Sarah Jane. Sarah Jane, go ahead, please.
Okay, I did attend a seminar for an hour about AI, and I mean, I'm so glad that Gail clarified that this is only a note taker, because it can be used for amazing things like ordering and have Instacart do your order, and they'll do everything for you. It may be the way of future, I don't think yet, but it gives a bad meaning to the word meeting. Like we're not really meeting if robots are there. And I mean, virtual is a compromise, but and it would be nice if we can meet personally. But we have to say, if there's a robot in the room, we're not meeting. All our meetings are not meetings. And I also heard from the seminar that AI supplies an answer if it doesn't know it. So it makes up one because it doesn't leave any question unanswered. I don't know if that's true or not, but I spent an hour listening to all this, and I don't want it admitted. I would vote against admitting it. I don't think the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, which are privacy and all the other things. We're not meeting all the reasons I've said.
Thank you. Yeah, Michael, I'll put you on the list. Don't worry, you'll be after Miguel. We've got Adonis, Elena, Miguel, then Michael. Adonis, go ahead.
Yeah, so as you know, we currently have minutes. And as you know, those minutes are available on the Google Drive. And those minutes, for the most part, they record in terms of what the item was, a brief description of what the group talked about, and decisions made by the group. So they should be pretty brief. So that's our minutes, and anyone could go on those minutes and see that. What is also missing is any in confidence in camera discussions where we say, let's keep this off the record, that we don't have it in the minutes. We just record whatever's decided after those in-camera discussions have happened. So this note taker essentially would allow anybody to get the full transcription of the meetings and use them how they will. Out of context and context, they just could edit it, take out parts that they want or whatever, right, from the notes that they get. So my suggestion, if we were going to use it, is that we use a professional version of it, which would be paid through the SDP, that it be administered by staff, and that staff sets the access to those in terms of who sees those minutes or not, meaning that I don't think they should go to anybody outside our meetings per se, but regardless, it could be sent to anybody once any member of the meetings has it. I think it's a really good tool to use in terms of helping staff with the minutes, in terms of being able to say who said what, who said that, and putting whatever they decide into the minutes or a reminder of what happened at that meeting. So I think it's a good tool for staff in terms of to do minutes. I don't know if it's a great tool at this point for all the members and members who are outside this meeting to use. That's my point.
Okay. We're going to go on to Elena, and then Miguel, then Michael.
Thank you very much, Walied. Yeah, as AI is a technology, always I am with the technology because it's a way of developing your knowledge. That is not the bad things to me, and I am in favor of the AI. There are a few points that I would like to mention that they are very important. One, it is this type of AI recording is some sort of the documentation of what we are doing. Whatever we are approving in this type of the meeting, no one understands. If I get the thumbs up, this thumbs up goes nowhere because just we know. But tomorrow, the city will ask us, how did you approve this project? How did you come out with this type of the decision? Those AI note takers, it would be the proof of the documentation of whatever we have done. This is the reason that, I am in a favor. Other things, as even many people, they have mentioned, that's a, public type of the meeting. Many people, they can get into and definitely out. Those people that they get into the meeting for the few times, maybe 1 time, 2 times, and by chance, they face a little bit of the conflict among the members over some issues or maybe over some topics that they are discussing. Even without the AI taker, the person can act as an AI and they can go outside and discuss about it, but in a different way. And even the words, it could get changed. But if we have the documentation as a proof, even if they change the words, we have something to prove it. No, this is, it was, means this one, and it has been already recorded. So as keeping the proof, always this is important to avoid the future conflict, even among those people that they are not the member. They just, get into the meeting and even they go out. Other things, it would be when sometimes the meetings is overlapping. For example, I am not able to join the meeting for the whole, 2 hours. So I would like to join only for 1 hour, but I want to know what is happening in the rest of the meeting. So that would be a very great way to go back and read out, even it is not really absolutely, it's concise, the AI note taker, but you can get the understanding of that, what has happened during a meeting and what point it has been discussed. And if you have any issue, you can just bring it out in the next meeting, that it would be appropriate to be discussed again, among the members. The another things that I would like, to mention, it's, of course, I understand the, confidentiality of the information, but whomsoever they get this note-taking, there is a possibility to make it as the confidential, and they are not releasing to everyone, and they keep it with themselves. We can provide a information session to everyone that whomsoever use this AI, they are not allowed to misuse it or maybe share it with other people out of these members, and they are for the personal use. That will help the committee to keep the secrecy as well as the confidentiality for those people that they feel a little bit uncomfortable. These are the points that I wanted to mention.
Okay, thank you, Elena. We're going to move on to Miguel and then Michael. Miguel, go ahead.
Yeah, what I'd like to add is that if this note taker application gets passed at all or approved, I'm glad that in the parking agenda, my motion to resource funding for education of residents of this community to understand the use of the AI technology. It will go a long way to solve this conflict, especially after what I was what I experienced on Monday night at the Regent Park Safety Network. I don't feel safe to attend the Regent Park Safety Network unless 2 things are changed, which is either allow the recording, which minimize the aggression, minimize the toxic behavior of some of our residents. And secondly, they don't have to isolate and single out one individual and blaming that all these note-taker messages come from me. And that is a big conflict I had to understand without seeing the evidence. I was not provided with evidence that all these note-taker were sent by me. But however, I was accused of sending out OTTER AI messages to specifically to a member in attendance at the last Regent Park Safety Network. So education will help to discover, as one of the presenters mentioned, if you want to opt in or if you want to opt out of the communications, and don't feel that, oh, I'm spamming your inbox with artificial intelligence messages. So I hope this helps in the long run, the education portion, and hopefully the city will have to pay to avoid conflicts in the community. Along will help also to have money for mediation as well, because we need to find solutions instead of just accusing and blaming, all because Oh, I wasn't aware of this technology. Thank you.
Okay, we have Michael as our last speaker. Then we're going to move on to the other items before we have Olanike join us to share some information. So go ahead, Michael.
Okay, so like there are many different types of AI, or there are many different AIs, and so the thing about them making up stuff, it's very common. I mean, it's not like automatic, but that is a common way for AIs to work. Now, as far as like teaching about AI, I mean, I feel like I should start teaching about AI. I don't know if anybody would come if I was the teacher. Should probably have more than one teacher because people do not agree on this, so you're going to hear different things from different people. So I should just start doing some teaching, and then if you want to get other people to teach, you can do that as well. But I probably have more experience in this than anybody you're ever going to find who's going to come and teach about it. But so I should do that anyways, even if you also want to get somebody else. I mean, as far as recordings are concerned, you know, if we're going to do this with the note takers, then I think we might as well also agree that the original of the recording, the audio recording, should be available to anybody and should not be vetted, because vetted who can get it, because you're going to get all that from the note takers anyways. So people might as well be able to see it if they prefer to have it in audio. That doesn't mean we can't still make an edited version. It's just that the edited version is the one we will distribute to our communication systems. But if somebody wants to see the original, that's no better or worse than seeing notes which haven't been edited. So I think if we're going to allow one, we should allow people to see the original of the recording, even though we will still make an edited version, and we will still distribute the edited version. But if somebody asks for the original, it's no worse than seeing the notes. So I don't understand what the issue is there. Yeah, so I mean, I'd also like to ask some people, not at this meeting, but I'd like to ask some of the people why they are so sure that there's no reason not to accept all technologies. I mean, there's been lots of debates about technologies throughout history, so why are we now, some people, so convinced that they're like, it's just definitely accept it, and there's not even a question to be worth asking? I mean, I don't want to like repeat all the things that are dangerous about AI in the next, 20 years or so, but you've probably heard them and they're true. So why is it that people think we should just agree with all technologies? So I'd like to have that conversation with somebody some other time, because it's just a very sort of surprising thing for me to hear, and I'd like to talk to some of the people who have said that and see what we can talk about, but not right now. For right now, I just hope we're aware of those things, and I don't see that I mean, whatever decision we make in regard to AI recordings, just hope we're aware that that's not the whole story, and there will be other things happening in the future that we should also be aware of.
Okay, thank you so much, Michael. So I just want to, maybe you can just stop sharing the screen, whoever is doing that. Adonis, I know you want to speak next to this item, but I just want to make sure that folks are aware that we're not making a decision today. We're just having a broad discussion about the implications of AI and note takers, because we have had different practices in different spaces. Some certain working groups allow AI note takers in, some, at the beginning of the meetings, not sometimes decisions are made for that not to happen. So I think we need to strive to build consensus on the use of AI and specifically note takers. I feel like there was a lot of new information that was shared today, and hopefully this could inform our practices moving forward. We've got Adonis, the final speaker on this, and then I'm going to go to the next item, which relates to our co-chair elections. Go ahead.
I guess to sort of something that we can consider as a compromise, I support, I have it in the chat, but I support a professional version that SDP admin staff can use, because they're the ones who do the minutes. and it has a better guide to record what was discussed and the decisions. And that SDP can use parts of the AI note taker to transcribe in their minutes, but only the official version minutes should go out to members.
Okay, thanks for sharing that perspective, Adonis. Okay, friends, I want to encourage you, if you're part of a working group and you feel passionate about this issue, maybe add it to the agenda, have discussions with the working group. I know Safety Network doesn't allow any recordings, so maybe that could be conversations that could be had formally there through an agenda item, and as well as communications, community building, and EED. I think our goal is to expand access and participation, and that will require us to consider new technologies that allow that to happen as well. Okay, we're going to move on to the next item. I'm going to quickly share the screen. This is our terms of reference that we have to follow. And I'm going to read the specific sections that relate to this item. So co-chairs are elected for a one-year term from September to August. Resident co-chairs are available for re-election for a maximum of 3 terms. So you can be a co-chair for up to no more than 3 terms. So it could be for 1 year, you could skip a year, come back another year, skip a year, come back another year, or it could be year after year after year, but it's up to 3 years. And it's a 1-year term. You must be reelected every year, okay? The other expectations are organizational co-chairs. So we have agency co-chairs, and they're available for reelection for a maximum of 2 terms. So you could be there for 2 years supporting a working group, okay? So those are the terms that we must follow as per our term, unless they're changed. And it says that if this overlap allows for mentorship and effective transitions. If needed, the City of Toronto Community Development Worker will temporarily fill in as co-chair to support absence, transition, and role vacancy. So that's another expectation that is in our terms of reference. So I just want to remind everyone that at the October meetings of the working groups, please put on your agenda the process to elect your co-chairs. So you have to fill in a market resident, Toronto Community Housing resident or tenant, and an agency co-chair. So I will be attending the working groups in October to support that process as much as possible. I have reached out to all the co-chairs of the working groups to remind them of this expectation. And also the SDP co-chairs also have to go through a process as well of appointments by their boards or the decision-making entities. So we're exploring that conversation this month to make sure that we follow our terms of reference and not make sure that there's an opportunity for democratic renewal by the working groups. Okay, Miguel, you have a question? Go ahead.
I have a comment with regards in the terms of reference. We're still mentioning tenant council, Regent Park Tenant Council. As you are aware, Walied, that is no longer active. It has been centralized. The request to have a third stakeholder table co-chairs, it was because TCAC advocated for a third chair based on the argument that TCAC has a tenant council. So how do we fix this situation? I think you have asked Felicia to come and make a presentation on the Tenant Advisory Council. How is different from the Regent Park Tenant Council? You see, there is a little bit of conflict here. I think we need to amend the terms of reference to project a clear vision of the tenant engagement in Regent Park, which is no longer exists. And the argument that was made by TCAC staff in the past to allow a third resident co-chair or the stakeholders table be nullified or removed based on that changes that have transpired in the last 9 months. That is my comment.
Okay, thanks for sharing your comments, Miguel. Next, I saw another hand up. Is this Sarah Jane? You wanted to speak to this?
No, I think I'm on a tenant council, but it's the tenants of the spectrum. So, and I represent the SDP on that. So it's not a tenant council as Miguel's speaking of. So I lowered my hand. It's the tenants of the Daniel spectrum.
Oh, you mean there's an advisory committee, Daniel Spectrum, of tenants of Daniel Spectrum?
That's right. And I represent
okay, sorry, Jane. I get that. Thank you for your service, Sarah Jane, for doing that great work. Okay, so Miguel, point taken. I will follow up with Felicia to make sure there is a presentation made so we can have a better sense of ensuring that TCHC tenants are represented as per the expectations of the terms of reference, and also like the spirit of making sure that the body exclusively represents Regent Park residents, right? Because it relates to Regent Park. Okay, we're gonna move on to the next item. And so let me quickly share the screen. Second. So the next item relates to, Elena, you ready? It's related to the business case. So what I'm hoping we could do today is, because we don't have a business case ready for approval, we do have Adonis from the Communications Working Group. You are from EED. It's Rabia from the Community Building Working Group, and Joel. Those are two co-chairs there represented. We don't have Hadja or Leonard as part of this meeting, and maybe there could be conversations that could be had between now and the next planning meeting so that it could inform the business proposal for what you want to share. So I'll let you go speak first, and then I see Gail's hand is up, so we'll go to Gail next. So let me just quickly share the screen. And what we're discussing is a business case for access to the 50K funds for contact cards for the EED. So go ahead, Elena.
Yeah, thank you very much. Of course, there is no ready, business case at this moment. But I want to, make sure, and I have a few questions. Do you have any sample of those type of the, business cases that already you have made it, or
Yes.
how we have to proceed? If you have it and we have to fill it up, just please send it. And to whom it has to be addressed, exact, name, information of the people that we have to, address, and how to proceed. Because I don't want to make it from my side, and then there will be a problem that, oh no, already we had it. And definitely, I would like to know how much time we have to proceed this one, and how much time we'll get to receive the reply regarding the agreement, or maybe, disagreement of this matter. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Elena. So those are some important questions. So I will invite Joel or Brandy to answer that question with regards to the template. I can look it up in my emails and send that to you as well. And I think we also need to think about the costs for the cards and how many you get. Right?
Yeah, I'm just
and
gonna
whether they desire, whether it's, yeah.
So,
okay, so Gail wants to speak to this, but I want to invite Joel or Brandy to speak to this.
Yeah, I wanted to actually speak to the previous item. So Joel, just give me a minute.
Okay.
So
why don't we...
yeah, I just needed to understand, like, I know we had that item. Is it that you are saying to the working groups, go elect people, or are you reminding them? And if so, could we just maybe send an email to the co-chairs? I think that should suffice to them to know that. Do we know which working groups require new co-chairs? Maybe that's something this group wants to know. So whether we know now or a quick email just to let people know that.
Okay. So excellent question. There's one complication, that's the EED. Elena, remind us, when were you and Hashim and Colin?
Exactly, it was around end of the April, after the 16th April. 16 April,
Okay,
yes.
so after 16th of April. So there's a 1-year term. So it says terms of reference very clear on that. You haven't fulfilled the 1-year term yet. So that's the one complication that we have. But everyone else is supposed to happen in October. So
yeah, just
that's
4.5 months. Yes.
1.5 months. Okay, so that's maybe something we might need to just redo for validation. So your new term does start in October of this year.
Maybe change things now, but I think we can just get Randy to give us all the info, and then we know where everybody's at, because they've already been elected. We don't want them to go through in another election.
Yeah,
that wouldn't be fair to them.
Yeah.
So anyways, I just wanted to understand the topic, but yeah, I think if we have all the information, then we all know what all the terms are. We all know maybe when, and then maybe the next part of this is, hey, remind us how we go about doing the elections. Although we do know that I think different folks have different ways of doing the election. So we have to bear that in mind. My other was on this piece regarding the business card. So again, that ties back to when does your term end, right? Because if you go print a whole set of cards and that person is not co-chair, does it have their name on it and those types of things? So I would think we want to know that as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think it's timely about the business cards, because if you're having elections in October, the new co-chairs or the current co-chairs can have for their full term, while EED will probably have it for half their term until renewal, if there's no election. So Sarah Jane, you're next.
Okay, I don't agree with business cards. I don't agree with co-chairs. I know Michael agrees with me. I mean, I'm a member of a volunteer organization. It's hierarchical when we have co-chairs. I know you need some administration, but now it's a corporate hierarchical thing. I don't understand why anybody needs a business card here. And it's just adds layers and layers and layers to inclusive and whatever else. I'm a volunteer here, and everybody's the same, and everybody should get the same honorarium. That's my position and has been, and I just want my position noted in the minutes, please. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sarah Jane, for sharing your perspective. So before we move on to the next item, there was an explicit request by Elena to have access to a template for a business case. So can I get a verbal confirmation either from Brandy or Joel that will happen, so we could move forward with this item?
We do have templates. I would suggest that this is probably better just addressed directly with the SDFA staff. It's a very small amount of money. Yeah. It might not be relevant to do a business case for it. So I think it's better just to reach out and say, there's an interest here. Is there a way to do this?
Okay, excellent. Could either yourself or Brandy facilitate that conversation with the appropriate SDFA staff? So that item is with a loop on, close that loop?
Yeah, we could.
Okay, Elena, could you please connect with our friends Joel and Brandy, and they'll support you with that, okay?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yes.
You're very welcome. Okay, Adonis, you're next, and then we'll move on to the next item.
I think a larger discussion is a business case for our needs going forward for this year. Essentially, the honorariums for chairs, in terms of how many meetings SDP meetings we're gonna have and the budget for those meetings. Mm-hmm. In terms of, I don't know if any of the working groups put out posters in terms of outreach that is needed for their work, and which the business cards could fall under. I don't know in terms of printing costs that people will need, and especially if we're still going to continue. I think a larger discussion needs to have out those things and what kind of process or what the SDFA is looking at in terms of use the resources, which they say is their resources to use for us. Anyways, yeah, I think rather than approach it as a item by item thing, that we should be thinking of a larger, which may be a delay for the business cards. So I would just say go ahead with the business cards themselves, with using whatever budget monies that we are able to cop up with, whichever committee needs it, but a larger discussion.
Excellent points, Adonis. And let's just also remind ourselves that the status of our business cases that were submitted to the City of Toronto is still unknown. There are still co-chairs that have not received an honoraria. There were changes made to the allocation for our stakeholders meetings due to funding for Sunday in the Park. So I think we need to revisit those conversations, and maybe we can invite Richard Kerwin to a future planning committee meeting to help us appreciate what the status of those business cases are. Like, what have they been approved? Have they been amended, etc. So maybe maybe Brandy can help us with that process alongside Joel to just get that commitment for a presentation from the city. Okay, good points, Adonis. Thank you so much. We're now going to the next item. And the next item before Olanike joins us is restriking the funding committee. I think we're going to end our meeting on time, if not early, my friend. So, Michael, you have the floor, my friend.
This committee has been missing for quite a while now, and people have made various ideas like, you know, sustainable funding means looking for funding sources and so on. So it seems to me that it can be restarted, and there's no reason not to. The initial stages will just be finding out who's interested. So we'll have plenty of time to complete other discussions that need to happen before they can really get into work. It's not like, you know, they're going to go off immediately and start doing things and we haven't discussed it. But if we don't start the committee, then they won't be able to have those discussions. And then when we actually want to do something, it'll then take a few months before we're ready to do it. So the first stages are just getting organized, knowing who's involved, that sort of thing. But we should do that now so we're ready, especially since a couple of key funding issues are coming up in the next 3 or 4 months. So I think it should be done. Now, people have said that Dixon Hall handled this in the past. I have no problem with sort of offering them first refusal to chair this, and if they want it, then we go ahead, and if they don't, then we look for somebody else. But I do think we should make the decision to go ahead.
Okay, so one of the things that we discussed at the agenda planning is who's going to be the leads for the funding committee. So I think that's something that I hope we could all discuss, is who's interested in supporting the funding committee, either representing an agency or residents, because it's going to be integral for continuity, but also to help us with grant applications that focus on the SDP. So I'm just going to ask everyone if whoever's interested, and welcome Marwan, welcome to our meeting. So Sarah Jane, you can go first, and then we'll welcome Marwan with a check-in question next. Go ahead, Sarah Jane.
Okay, Adonis was the lead, and I thought we agreed to that the last meeting. And I was on the committee, and I'd want to be on it again. But Adonis was definitely the lead last time.
Awesome. So Adonis, are you comfortable with continuing to be the lead for the funding committee? And maybe what we could do is we could strike the committee either today or at our next planning meeting with members. If you could provide us with some feedback, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, I chaired the funding committee after Diana was unable to do so. I don't think it was Dixon Hall per se, it was Diana who took on this role.
Yeah.
Yeah, my thoughts are that I think there needs to be discussions about the terms of reference. I don't think that we should be involved in terms of the upcoming SDP for 2024 or in terms of this rollout. I don't think there should be a funding committee about that. I think it should be a long-term sustainability of the SDP, and that's what we should be looking at. And those discussions will take place as part of the strategic planning and as part of the refresh. I don't think we should waste our time on this coming round of the SDP and anything related to that. That's my opinion on that. And if you're asking me whether I'd be chairing it, I don't think so. I think at least not until I know what the status of the refresh is. And how I think we're going to be busy involved with that and trying to negotiate however that is rolling out. So to me, it doesn't make sense in terms of a funding committee that doesn't really know what the parameters of that with the city is. So that's my personal take on that. So no, I don't think I'll be involved with that. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Adonis. So
can I just clarify? I wasn't talking about 2024. I was talking about the City Hall discussions for 2025 funding.
Okay, point made, Michael. So what I took away from Adonis's advice is let's get the SDP refresh and strategic planning process aligned, and then look into a funding committee that could resource the SDP for the years to come. That's what I'm taking away. And there are opportunities such as community benefit dollars and other sources of funding that could be directed to the SDP. We have Miguel. Before I go on to you, I just want to welcome Marwan. Marwan, the check-in question is, what are you looking forward to event or program this coming fall? And I see in the chat, looking forward to the community living catering program. I love that. It's going to be a great opportunity for our caterers to gain the skills to be local entrepreneurs. Love that. Okay, Miguel, you can go next.
Yes, I do agree with Adonis. We have not yet absorbed the whole SDP refresh. And of course, we need to have sustainable funding for our SDP. As you know, our discussion with the SDFA have been tarnished by rumors, gossip, all kinds of things that has led to the SDP refresh. So we need to understand what is the game plan of the city now in relation to the release of funds before we get into a committee to request funds. But definitely it's time to reaffirm to the city that without funding the SDP in Regent Park, we are going to go back to the old ways where none of us have been able to benefit from the development of Regent Park. We're still poor. We're still living in our buildings that are brand new, but we're still poor. Our income has not changed. So this is the compromise that we have, is to improve our community. Improving meaning to have meaningful work employment opportunities, specifically for people with disabilities, because we are the largest population that is ignored by employers, and that has to change if we really want to speak about the success stories of the Regent Park redevelopment, which is not really not something to celebrate, but to just continue requesting for funding and making this community a lot better, a lot fairer for everybody. Thanks.
Thank you, Miguel. And we are going to have those conversations with our stakeholders at the city. We did have a presentation not too long ago about the SDP funding being released for groups that have projects between December of 2024 and December of 2025, which is great. We've had a lot of residents sign up during Sunday in the Park and other outreach events, showing their support for funding of the Regent Park Social Development Plan. So I think Adonis has done a great job supporting the strategic planning working group of the SDP to put forward the recommendations made by residents at various stakeholder meetings, including the most recent one just this summer about the impact of the funding related to the SDP, so that we can come up with a better model that better supports youth participation, our seniors, and other important groups that might be disfranchised from decision making. So I think we actually have a plan, and I think it's important for us to align those plans so that we work much more cohesively. So we do have Olanike, who's going to join us in 1 minute to speak to a very important piece, which is the panel. So just as a quick reminder, in the past, so this was years ago, because the funding was allocated for 2 years, not just 1 year. But in the last process, what happened was people applied to be on the panel. The city staff selected who the individuals are, and then they made recommendations on funding for the 500K, and they actually allocated about $1 million to groups for 2 years. So wasn't for just 1 year cycle.
Before we get on to that, can I just summarize from the last discussion?
Sure.
I think we should start to make some moves to at least inquire who would be interested in leading or being on or being a chair or just being a member of the committee. I don't think that starting to do that now, like these organizational steps, is in contradiction to the fact that we're still discussing the overall situation with regards to the strategic plan and the refresh. There's nothing wrong with being prepared so that the committee can actually function once we are ready to start functioning. Because if we're not taking this in that step-by-step manner, then it will be too late to influence the City Hall decisions this year for 2025. I'm talking about future decisions. And the reason being given for not doing this is future decisions. But if we don't do this, it will impact future decisions because we won't be ready to participate in them. So we can prepare the organizational steps now, and then once we've got more of a strategic plan ready, then we can start working. But
okay, Michael, I hear your argument.
Prepared.
I hear your argument. It's very straightforward. Let's start the preparation now. Let's not wait until those processes are aligned. And we have Adonis who wants to speak next to this. But my advice is, if Adonis has been very clear, he doesn't have the capacity to be involved as a lead for now. If you, Michael, want to take on a lead, and there are other folks that are interested in that process, I think it's an open working group, and we can initiate it and see how many people are interested in doing this work, because there is value in that as well. But let's hear from Adonis first, and then let's go back to this important point before we end our meeting. Go ahead, Adonis.
Yeah, we're going through a strategic planning process already in terms that will impact in terms of whatever funding decisions that are coming out, right? It doesn't make sense to me that you start a separate funding committee that is not attached or not connected to what we're doing in the strategic planning. It does not make sense. That's why I support get the strategic planning done, start negotiating with the city around their refresh, and then we know directions of where the funding committee's work needs to be and their terms of reference and so on. To do those things separately, to start another separate committee around that, to me, does not make sense. You already have a committee for strategic planning. If you want to put sustainability as part of the strategic planning until, as part of the terms of reference, I think that makes sense to me. but trying to start a separate committee outside of the Strategic Development Committee does not make sense to me.
Thank you, Adonis, for sharing that. Okay, so back to the item that's going to be on, well, now our item related to the SDP funding process for prioritized action items from the working groups. We are going to hear from Olanike next, and I just want to provide quickly some context. Like I said earlier, the funding was for 2 years. It was for $1 million. There was a panel where residents had to apply, and some were affiliated with the SDP. The changes now is we've had several info sessions, I believe 2, and the funding will be made available from December 2024 to December 2025. There was discussions with our friends at the city's funding unit on whether it should be 50% of funding or 70% of funding. I did provide advice that they should be accommodating to groups. Some groups might need 100% of funding. So I believe there's a commitment to work with groups that might not have enough funding to complete their projects. So hopefully we'll hear from Olanike about that, and also the process of involving the working groups of the SDP. And so my friends, Olanike is in our meeting. So Olanike, please welcome to our meeting. And our check-in question was, maybe you want to answer this, and I'll put this in the chat, is what are you looking forward to this fall, whether it's a program or an event? And welcome.
Hi, everybody. Sorry I'm late. I'm just coming from another meeting, actually. So as you said before, my name is Olanike, and I'm the community development worker for Regent Park. Your check-in question, what was it? What are you looking forward to this fall or event?
Yeah. Event or program?
Event or program. I'm supposed to be actually going to, I think it's called like a tiny concert where they have like, not like an orchestra, but violinists playing different genres of music. So that's something that I'm looking forward to going to in November. And I'm probably going to be attending the Coldplay one. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
What is it called, Olanike? Maybe we want to join you.
I think it's called I think it's called Tiny Desk or Tiny Concert, something along those lines. I've gone before. I went last year and I attended the Rihanna one. So I have to look at it again, but I'm planning to go in November. But I will definitely send you that information.
Amazing. Thank you, Olanike. Okay, you have the floor, my friend.
Okay, so I just wanted to go over, my apologies because I said I was going to be doing a presentation, but the presentation that was supposed to be completed, it was from a part of the community funding unit, but the document is not completed yet. So I can't share it with you, but I will at another date. What I really wanted to come and talk to you guys about was about the Social Development Plan Grant Review Committee application. So I don't know if all of you guys have received the email. If not, I can definitely forward it back out. So I'm just going to read directly from the email. So it just says, if you're a resident of Regent Park community and you're interested in contributing to the Social Development Plan, applications are now open for the 2024 SDP Grant Review. The SDP Grant Review Committee is a group of local Regent Park residents that will review eligible social development plan applications and make funding recommendations. The SDP Grant Committee will be comprised of 10 diverse Regent Park residents, with 1 member selected from each SCP working group to sit on and review the committee. I'm sorry that I'm not able to share the actual document. I'm actually reading it from my computer. I'm talking to you guys on my phone, so I'm not able to do that correctly right now. But as I said before, I definitely can share it out. So who can apply? So you can apply if you're a resident of Regent Park community and you are interested in serving in this role and are willing to make a contribution to the Regent Park redevelopment effort. So the role description, each member of the review committee will have to review applications. Panelists will keep notes, score the projects based on the access criteria, and provide their feedback during the moderated review panel meeting to discuss the panel member recommendations for funding. So participating details, participants on the review committee will provide you with an opportunity to contribute to the social development plan. You will receive training on how to evaluate applications and provide feedback. The time commitment is approximately 15 hours in total, and applicants must be available for the scheduled meetings. You will obtain valuable experience as a project proposal reviewer and have the opportunity to work in a team motivated with individuals. Each community member selected to serve the review committee will be offered an honorarium for their contribution. So if there's a conflict of interest or a conflict of interest and confidentiality, I just want to go over that. In accordance with the City of Toronto's conflict of interest and confidentiality policy, all panelists must attest to their in particular before the review process may begin. Community members who supported the development of the proposal are a member of a group that has submitted a proposal or will see a financial gain from the approval of the proposal cannot participate in the review process. It is important to note that conflict of interest also occurs when a community member's family, friends, or organizations they support may benefit from the decisions made by the panel. If conflicts of interest are not declared and emerge once the review process has begun, the city reserves the right to revise the review process to ensure adherence of the policy. So for the selection process, review committee members will be selected by the City of Toronto staff. The members of the review committee will be selected based on their qualifications, interests, and willingness to contribute to the Regent Park Social Development Plan. Equity and diversity will be taken into accordance during the selection review committee members. The selection process will aim to make sure the review committee is representative of the Regent Park community and reflects the goals to address the needs of the most vulnerable residents. So how to apply, it just shows how to apply in the email, as I said before, I can forward it. And the date to apply is by Monday, October the 21st, 2024 by 12 noon. And then in the email, there is an application link, so you can just go directly to the link and apply. And then just furthermore, just states that if you guys have any questions or concerns, you can contact me or Diara. The email is quite detailed. It has the flyer in it. It has the grant panel review committee application. It has another flyer, and then it has the grant actual guidelines that have been recently updated.
Thank you, Olanike. And I'm assuming this information will be sent over to Brandy for circulation to the rest of Planning Committee.
Yes.
And we'll make sure it's available to also all the groups that have either received funding from the SDP or either successful or unsuccessful, so they're at least aware of what the process is when it comes to the approval of funding for the 500K. So we'll take our first question, and that's Marwan. Go ahead, Marwan.
Thank you. Hey, is it Olanike? Am I pronouncing your name right?
Yes, you are.
Hey, thank you. Olanike, sorry, my question is kind of related to what you're saying, but not directly. So we are like a very unique organization. I represent Healing is One. It's a charitable organization that exists in Regent Park, based in Regent Park. And we wanted to kind of take advantage of this funding opportunity to enhance our programming, but also provide support as a trustee. I never got a chance to be part of any of the information sessions, nor did I get any information on my emails. And I just wanted to ask you directly, because you might have the answer to this. Are you allowed as an agency to be a trustee to provide, support to grassroots organizations at a subsidized rate versus other agencies, in addition to applying for funding for personal projects or like our own projects for our organization? Is that possible, or do you have to do one or the other?
I believe that you can do both. I believe someone did have this question the other day.
Yes.
It's more Diara that references these questions, but if I'm positive, I think you can do both. I can definitely connect with you offline just to make sure.
Amazing. Sounds good. And then in addition to that, can I also request any limitations about this funding opportunity, whether it be like a certain amount or, what makes you kind of not eligible, just for the funding aspect of things? I'm more interested in that as well. Thank you so much for your response. We truly appreciate it.
No problem. So in terms of eligibility, you can apply for up to 100,000. It would just depend on what it is that your program is on and what money that you're actually asking for. Ask for what if you feel that your program needs. In terms of what would make you eligible and what wouldn't make you eligible, we have created a document, so I can definitely forward that to you as well too, to let you know those guidelines as well.
You're the best. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Olanike. Does anyone else have a question for Olanike? Go ahead, Adonis.
Olanike, is the application an online application or is it a paper application?
The application is online. You can print it out and do it in paper. So I believe there's a check market survey, and then there's like the budget and the work plan. Those stuff are documents that you have to print out, but the actual application is online.
My experience with online applications is that there's no opportunity to review and work with committee members when putting that together. It's basically an individual application with process because it's online. You know what I mean? Like, it's only one person that works at a computer, and you can't go ahead to see other pages without a page first. I can't really send it to involved process of participating in the process. So is there an opportunity to see the whole application process before you do the online to see the applications?
As I believe, I think there is on the Google Drive. I can forward you the documents as well too. On the Google Drive, I believe there is the whole application, but the check market survey part of it cannot be printed out. But the whole application, I believe, is on the Google Drive.
Excellent, Onlika. Thank you so much. The two main other points that I want to make sure are addressed before we conclude our meeting, and it's 3 o'clock, so we're going to have to be very quick. The first being, there were concerns in the past about representation from the working groups, and I know that we're going to be very, very intentional in highlighting conflict of interest and who can and can't apply, and for people to be diligent to know if there's someone they're close to, a family member, relative, someone they work with, and other, if they're applied for the funding, so they could recuse themselves from the panel. But the question was also about transparency, who serves on the panel. So that's the first thing that I hope we could quickly discuss. The second piece is with regards to alignment with the priorities of the working groups. So how will that occur? Will groups be given an opportunity to present to the panel on how their project proposal aligns with the priorities of the working groups?
So in terms of the panel, I believe that we're looking for at least 1 or 2 people from each panel to be on the committee itself. In terms of being able to present, that's something that I have to get back to you about because I'm not exactly sure and I don't want to give you an answer. In terms of transparency, I know that we want a wide range of people on the panel as well too. And the city is going to be making sure that, in terms of if there's any conflict of interest, they definitely will be addressed prior to.
Exactly. Okay, thanks, Alonika. Looking forward to that response with regards to presentation as well. We have Marwan and then Miguel. Before we go to Marwan, I'm going to go to Miguel first because you haven't spoken yet. So Miguel, go first, and then we'll go to Marwan.
Hi, my question is in regards to the SDP refresh and funding for educational programs. In the agenda of today, on the parking lot agenda, I'm making requests for funding to educate residents of Regent Park who has technical challenges, understanding new emerging technologies such as the artificial intelligence note taker. What is your opinion about funding this type of educational programs? It's something that the SDP refresh will encourage to fund this because education helps us to avoid so many of the pitfalls that we have as a community. If we don't understand, for instance, the use of a Google Drive, many of us miss a great opportunity to learn what will happen in the meeting that you miss it, or the so-called I was afraid to attend the meeting because X, Y, and Z. I would like to see a copy of the notes. So those things are important to know if the SDFA will provide funding for education purposes. Thank you.
Hi, Miguel. So you asked a few questions. I'm not going to be able to address all of them, but if you can actually just send that to me in email, and then I can get back to you regarding what it is that you're seeking, okay? For me to better answer that.
I'm seeking how you plan to release funds for education purposes.
Miguel, unfortunately, the meeting that I'm here today was just supposed to be speaking about the committee and the panel, and I won't be able to address those concerns right now. So if you send it in an email, that would be great.
Thank you, Aronike. Next, we got Marwan.
Yeah. Hey again. My question is in regards to the piece around conflict of interest. Is there any documentation prepared that outlines a guide? I know you said no family, no friends, no organization that you work with, but I'm more concerned about being due diligent in this process? Like, how do we kind of like verify and confirm that certain people are not associated with certain organizations, certain projects? Like, what's the follow-up look like? I know in the past it has been an issue. People brought around, you know, conversations around people who have interest in certain projects who are pushing them through. But this would be nice to know if there's any document prepared.
Hey, hi everyone, it's Richard. There is a document that funding has that there's an outline of conflict of interest. So it has to just fit, it will fit within that, and we can send that out. I'll talk to the person who is dealing with the fund, DR Hughes, and she can send out a conflict, like the City of Toronto's conflict of interest policy. So
Understood, Richard. But I mean, I was just concerned if that process is done pre-screening before we even have a panel, and is it done after? Like, I just want to know, like, how do we kind of confirm that people who, you know, allegedly or attest to say like there's no conflict of interest, how do we follow up and ensure, right? Because just me saying my word should not be good enough. I shouldn't say, oh, Marwan, I'm not interested in, you know, let's say Adonis's project because there's no, you know, conflict of interest, but maybe there is. I'm not saying that there is one, but I'm just saying, what if there is? Like, how do we kind of mitigate that from that happening?
I mean, we can oversee that only to a certain extent, right? I think there's only so far you go. I can't go into someone's head and read that they're, you know, secretly dating someone or something like that. But if something does come out, right, I completely understand where you're going, but there is always that piece that there could be something there. I don't think there's 100% way to identify that, but the stuff that we can identify that is surface level, that will be identified. And if that same situation that you just described and that comes out, funding will be taken away from that person if the vote was towards that. Like if that's an issue, it will be taken away. So I think we want to make sure that anyone that is going for it, that they understand that they have all their conflicts out in the open and state them. And then it's up to funding to say, okay, well, that's not really a conflict of interest because you worked on a project 5 years ago or something like that. So they can do that just as long as they're upfront and stating it. That's where they're at. But those are really questions that you're going to have to ask for funding. It's not in our realm or our oversight of it. So that's where we're at.
No worries, Richard. Yeah, I'm very satisfied with the answer, by the way. So thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you, Marwan. Next, we have Gail, and then we're going to conclude our meeting. Go ahead, Gail.
I was going to ask Marwan if he came across that issue before and how they dealt with it.
I don't like. I choose to abstain. Let's put it that way. I choose to abstain from speaking about anything.
Okay, my friends. Just before we end our meeting, I just want to remind folks who are interested on serving in the panel. This requires integrity. So if you are aware of a project proposal where you're close to the applicant, I want to beg you to recuse yourself. We want to make sure that this funding cycle goes without a hitch. We want to inspire confidence by City Council to continue investments in our Regent Park Social Development Plan. So it's about personal responsibility. It's about integrity, right? And it's also about declaring whether you have a conflict of interest in your application. So that those that are responsible for making the determination of whether you should serve on the panel or not are well informed about any potential conflicts of interest. I want to finally thank Olanike and Richard for joining us this meeting to explain more about the panel and the process. I'm confident that our work is going to be aligned moving forward. And just as a reminder, Brandy is a wonderful resource as an SDP coordinator for those residents or groups that might have questions related to the SDP funding. We also have Derry Hughes from the funding unit who actually has had 2 info sessions and an office hours as well for those who might have questions and want to meet in person. So let's promote those opportunities for engagement and dialogue so that we could have the best projects that are aligned with the priorities of the working groups funded, so we could have a huge impact in 2025. So thanks, everyone. It's 3:10. We're 10 minutes after what we were scheduled to end our meeting. And thanks a lot to Brandy and every member of planning committee for the support.
For a moment, Walied?
Yeah, go ahead, Joel.
Just quickly, I don't think that people should turn to Brandy for questions about the funding. That's really the purview of the city staff to make sure that the answers are accurate. So let's just be careful about what we expect from this administrative coordinator position.
100%. My point is, if people don't know who to turn to, they don't remember the name, they can always reach out. Well, I don't want everyone to reach out to me. I want people to be reaching out to Brandy for referrals. I'm not assuming that Brandy is going to be answering any of those questions, but refer to the appropriate people.
Let's make that clear. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, we're all on the same page, my friends. Have a lovely Thursday afternoon, and all the best with applications that are due at the end of October. Spread the word, my friends.
Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on all our social media platforms. And if you need more information, go to our website.